Yesterday, I spoke with the former president of Ukraine, Petro Poroshenko, who was the country's 5th president. I began by asking him for his assessment of where things stand on the ground in Ukraine today.
Ukraine paid during this aggression more than 100,000 people, innocent, civilian, killed by Russian missiles and by Russian attack drones and on the battlefield. By the way, this is not only Russian missiles. 40% of the missiles we receive in October, November, that was North Korean missiles. So North Korea is actively participated in the war, killing Ukrainians. And more than 50% of the attack drone is Iranian one. And that means that Iran is actively participated in this war, killing Ukrainians. And Ukraine surprised the world, stopping the second biggest army in the world and protecting our freedom, protecting our democracy, but not only ours. We're protecting the whole free and democratic world. And with this situation, they destroying our energy infrastructure, they destroying our educational institution, medical institution, and every single night I hear the blast of the missiles, I hear the motor noise of the attacking drone, and every single day or night our air defense is working, trying to protect us. But this is the war of Russia, Iran, North Korea against free democratic world, including, as Putin said, this is the war against US. This is a war against NATO. This is a war against European Union.
I think the way you frame it on a global scale is really important, especially at this moment in Washington, where we've seen Republican support for this war start to wane. We've seen the way that President-elect Trump talks about this conflict. How do you convince someone like Donald Trump that Ukraine winning is also in the U.S.'s best interest?
Undoubtedly. And I think that elected President Trump is a man of action, as a man of deal. And I have, as a president of Ukraine, 3 years of very effective cooperation with the President Trump. That was the President Trump who first gave us the lethal weapons, including the Stinger missile and Javelin missile. And because of this missile and bravery of Ukrainian soldiers, we stopped Russian troops in the February, March, and April year 2022. And after that, we are very much proud that that was a President Trump who introduced the sanction against the company who building up Russian Nord Stream 2.
But this is also the President Trump who has spoken favorably of his relationship with Putin.
You should know the President Trump. And I absolutely confident that when you communicate with Trump, when you speak with the language of arguments, Trump is quite decisive. And when anybody just want to demonstrate that we should find out a compromise with Putin, I try to explain you or describe you this situation. Putin want to kill me, and I want to live. How to find out the compromise? That's why you cannot find out any nation in the world who wants peace more than we Ukrainians, because we're paying a high price. But count on President Trump and all the new team, transition team, which is very strong, by the way, including the Special Presidential Envoy, General Collins. And I really think that they will find out an arguments and use this window of opportunity to find out the strong motivation to put Putin at the table negotiation. And for this scenario, Ukraine should be strong. Ukraine should be very well equipped. The unity of the whole world and the internal unity in Ukraine should be impressive. Because the purpose of Putin, he don't need a Crimea or Donbass. He needs to capture all Ukraine. This is the first strategy. And second strategy, he needs to divide all Western world. That's why he is so active in Romania, in Austria, in Slovakia, in Slovenia. He tried to penetrate and influence the election in US. That's why we should stop Putin. And it would be cheaper, more efficient to stop him in Ukraine.
You mentioned General Keith Kellogg, who, of course, the former president, now president-elect, is bringing back into the orbit as a special envoy. But I want to read to you what Kellogg wrote in a policy paper earlier this year. He said, the United States would continue to arm Ukraine and strengthen its defenses to ensure Russia will make no further advances and will not attack again after a ceasefire or peace agreement. Future American military aid, however, will require Ukraine to participate in peace talks with Russia. So when you read that, when you hear that from Kellogg, are you worried that a Trump administration will withhold weapons as a way to force Ukraine to the negotiating table?
Look, this is absolutely not necessary to force Ukraine to the negotiation table. We are ready. We have several understanding of this situation, which me as a president of Ukraine described in the year 2014. First, non-compromise on the sovereignty and national identity of Ukraine. We never return back as a part of Russia. Second, no compromise on the territorial integrity of Ukraine. Third, no compromise on the armed forces of Ukraine and ability of Ukraine to protect our independence and our land and our soil and our people. Fourth, no compromise on sanction against Putin, and that would be sanction from the hell, tailor-made, which create a motivation for Putin to sit at the table of negotiation, to cut Putin's ability to finance the war. And fifth, full membership Ukraine in NATO and in the European Union. This is the dream and this is the promises, and at the end of the day, all Europe and the United States in particular is interesting to have Ukraine in NATO, because Ukraine now has one of the strongest armed forces on the continent, and we are the only who can stop Putin.
When you talk about the list of non-compromise, where is there room for compromise?
We are ready to have a peace, a sustainable security situation on the continent.
But it sounds like peace in return for nothing.
We are not trading by territory, but we should create a motivation for Putin to stop the war. At the end of the day, Putin also pay a very high price for the war. And Putin, I want to stop any mistake to think that Putin is stronger than he actually is. Putin do not have a reserve. Putin has a disastrous situation in the Russian economy. Putin has a 25% inflation, disaster for the rate of exchange, disaster for the social standard. And that would be the using the very, unfortunately, narrow window of opportunity of the new presidential team to find out an arguments. Enough is enough.
My thanks to former President Poroshenko for his time. Coming up, exclusive new reporting on the incoming Trump administration's plan for mass deportations and what could happen if some countries refuse to take people back. That's up next on Meet the Press Now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.